Hi, my name is Olivia Reynolds. I am a licensed psychotherapist with Healing Hearts Trauma. Today I'm going to be making some content videos regarding the dismissive avoidant. Everyone's asked about me to do each one of the attachment styles, and then I'm going to make a bunch of other content videos today that I'm going to be circulating, which is going to be on PTSD, CPTSD, communication, the CPTSD, trauma responses, and a couple few other ones, so just catch up with them. So today we're going to look at the attachment theory, right? So we've already done one specific video on attachment. Everyone's heard about it, circulates, it's very popular. It's always been around. So, but with these type of videos now, everybody can kind of create content. So we're talking about the dismissive avoidant. Dismissive avoidants are one of the most challenging attachment styles because they often, if we looked at personality, can really verge in between narcissism and sociopaths. They really have this lack of emotional center, and they can really gravely dissociate because they've always been taught, suck it up, buttercup, shut up and stop crying, or I'm going to give you something to cry about. And basically, they don't know how to access what's in here. They feel it, but they don't know how to access it. They feel it, but they fear it, right? So there's this great grave of like push and pull. Sometimes I start to open up, but as soon as someone does one of those triggers, they're going to snatch right back, right? So as soon as somebody, even if it was a secure person, starts asking them questions or telling them what they don't like about what they're doing or what they need, it's going to make this person freak because they're like, right? Too much. You're asking too much of me. I don't even know what you want of me, because it's confusing for them. It's overwhelming. So if you think of a rearing of a child, of a dismissive child, it could be successful parents that are lawyers or doctors, and they just don't have time for their kids to play with them and cuddle with them and hold them and be affectionate with them. Or a kid has a really bad day. For example, let's just say little Susie is playing with her best friend Betsy, and Betsy is professing her love to her and telling her, like, you're the bestest friend I've ever had, and like, we're best friends, and gives her a little best friend bracelet. Well, then the next day, little Susie goes over and she hears little Betsy talking to her 3 other friends and saying, oh, you guys are my best friends. And Susie hears this and she's like, oh my God, like, my best friend just kind of betrayed me, right? A betrayal wound hurts her. And the DA is not going to say anything because they don't want confrontation, and they don't know how to say what they feel, and they're not going to go home and tell mom and dad because they've never been shown to express themselves and that it's okay or safe to do so. So they go to the room, sulk, stay by themselves. They do what's called the detachment, right? And this is where they can really isolate and dissociate and just stay in their bubble and do whatever they like. It's safer there. The interesting things about dismissive avoidance is they really want to have connections, but they just fear that if they let someone close, they're going to leave them like everybody else, because their thoughts are, people don't want to know me. I'm not interesting. You're going to leave me because I'm boring. I don't know how to have friends. I don't know how to enter interactions. So they have to put on a mask for as long as they can to try to socialize with people, but it makes them so uncomfortable because it's not really who they are. They're trying to learn to be who they are and feel okay about it without thinking that people are noticing it. So some of the things that the DA does not like are just some of the behaviors: high need for independence, emotional distance. They avoid emotional intimacy. Now, they might start it in the beginning. They might be intimate with someone, but as soon as the relationship starts to pressure them, even if it's not a romantic relationship, just pressuring them, asking them questions, wanting to be in their business, like, depending on who the person is, they're going to be like, whew, this is too much, right? It's too much. I'd be rather out on my own. And this is where the sociopath kind of comes in, because again, it's social skills. And we look at the autism spectrum too. They are very all similar to each other because they lack this component of the conversations that most people have. But when I do my video that you'll have to watch later, one on feelings, this is just not taught to any of us. Even the emotional side of people who are on the anxious side, right? We're not taught to talk about feelings. Like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How does that make you feel? It's not normal for us to talk about that. But for the DA, it's even more not normal, period. They don't like it. It makes them feel very uncomfortable. So for example, how this starts, let's just say you have a child learning to tie their shoes. Most caregivers would be like, oh, here, you're struggling. Let me help you or show you how to do that, right? And teach them. Well, a dismissive parent would be like, you know, Johnny, I had to learn to tie my shoes. You're just going to have to figure this out. And the kid's going to be like, well, I tried. Another example is mom says, hey, I need you to sweep the floor. And let's just say this kid's like 7 years old and the kid sweeps the floor, and then mom comes in and says, wow, you did a real shitty job sweeping the floor. And the kid's like, man, I swept the floor. You didn't tell me how to sweep the floor, right? So they develop this wound on criticisms because they've never been shown, right? So they're really, really, really wounded when you mention anything about needing for improvement, even if it's the truth, right? Let's just say I said, hey, I really don't like the way that you kiss me, for example, right? I want you to do it this way. For them, they're going to be like, whoa, I don't like hearing that stuff, because for them, they've had to learn to do everything themselves. And because of that, they think they do everything right. Not that it is right, but to them it is, because they've never had anyone show them. And for someone to finally come along and start striking the way that they did it, they take it as an insult and wounds their ego so, so deeply. And another part of this is that they think that if people truly see that they're incapable of these things, that you're going to leave them, because you're going to think something's wrong with them. They're not capable. They're not doing it right. They don't fold the towels tri-folded, or they don't do this or that. And they've just never been taught to socially know social norms and to understand that everyone has a viewpoint and a way of life. They value their independence. They'd rather be alone than in crowds. In fact, when they're in relationships, they'd rather have them very short term. Like, we could be together like 2 or 3 hours and then I need my space, right? So they value their independence. They value no conflict, don't want to fight. If you start overwhelming a DA, they're going to deactivate. And that's one of their biggest known features, is the deactivation stage. When you start pressing and probing and telling them and needing them more and more and more of them, they're going to shut down. And they have some really bad behaviors when they do that. Some DAs can look for a new supply, because I need somebody that's going to make me feel good. This person once upon a time was so kind, fed me full of all this stuff, but then suddenly they flip the switch and now I'm a problem to them. I'm not good enough for them. Everything they say about me is a criticism, or I'm not doing this enough, or I don't give enough, blah, 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 blah. You nag, you bitch, you complain. That's what we say to our partners, right? To our wives and husbands and stuff. They think we just nag. We're like, you didn't take the trash out. You didn't do this. The problem is we don't listen to each other. And then the other flip side of this is that it's just more, the DA needs to be shown, and it has to be said in a specific way for them to receive it. Not as that is something that they did, and ultimately that you're not going to leave them for it, right? So this workbook here is a really good workbook of learning about all the behaviors of a dismissive avoidant. How to get a DA to learn to activate into their feelings and start to speak from feeling statements. It's not selfish for us to ask for what we feel and what we think and what we need, which I'm going to show in later videos about feeling statements and how to develop and activate our emotional center. How to not take things personal. But some other bad traits of the DA is, again, that deactivation stage when they look for new supply. It's not necessarily that they want to cheat, but they're looking for somebody to make them feel good and doesn't know anything about them. So if I just keep dating people over and over, and this is why they get compared to narcissists and sociopaths, because they can quickly deactivate and switch, and you'll be like, where'd you go? Like, you don't care about me anymore. You were able to just date somebody else, right? Because they're looking for somebody else that doesn't know anything about them, that's not going to criticize them and make them feel like everyone else is pressuring them about the things they don't like about them that they're not doing. Now, this doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that they have to learn to adapt, that their way might not be what the other person needs. It has nothing to do with that you're doing it wrong. It just means that you have to both communicate ways that work for each other. And it will save a lot of fights and communication blocks. So they just keep to themselves. It's better for them. A lot of people think they're autistic or something like that because they verge on this line of neurodivergency. I'm better off alone. Keep to myself. No conflict. I don't have to talk about feelings. I don't have to talk about emotions. If you try to get them in a relationship too soon, they're just going to deactivate. They fear commitment because they think everyone's going to leave them. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm going to fail you some way. So they really are shaming themselves and self-wound themselves really, really harshly because that's what their parents did. You never do anything right. Nothing is good enough. And so we got to learn how to unwind that stuff. Check in for more videos. This is as quick as I could get it out. It's so hard to discuss this stuff in these short videos, but get the attachment books, do the work. There is I really, really highly suggest the shadow work. This is a great book for inner healing as well as this one.